Welcome to the Whiskey Tornado. I'm your host Lance, and for the next 24 days, we will be doing our Whiskey Tornado Advent Calendar. To those of you that are Patreon members, thank you so much. I was super excited to package these and get these out to you. Over the next 24 days, we're going to be sampling some amazing ryes, bourbons, and even some Japanese whiskeys. If you're not a Patreon member, that's okay. Feel free to follow along for the next 24 days. Use this as a tool. These are going to be quick reviews, but use it as a tool to decide what bourbons you might want to hunt in the future. All right, with that, if you're a Patreon member, you should have already taken out your sample and taken notes, drank about an ounce before you knew what we were going to review today. Day one, we are reviewing Blantons Single Barrel. This particular bottle was dumped on 6/10 of 2020, so right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. This is barrel number 259, Rick number 35, and bottle number 229. The ABV on this, it's 93 proof or 46.5% alcohol. So, Blantons is an interesting bottle because a lot of bourbon, or a lot of whiskey tubers, a lot of bourbon aficionados really like to shit on Blantons. And the reason for that is I do understand it. It used to be a $50 to $60 bottle, and you used to be able to find it everywhere. Now it's become so popular that it's almost impossible to find, and when you do find them, you're looking at $100 or $120 in some places for a bottle of this. And the reason that a lot of whiskey tubers or bourbon aficionados really get turned off by that is because there's a lot better bourbon for less. Now, taste is subjective, price is subjective. So there are some people where, $100 might be $40 to them, so it's not a big deal. But I think where it really gets people annoyed is that there's just so much more bourbon out there for cheaper. Now, I will say that I don't crap on Blantons, and here's why. The marketing's genius, and I think it is a perfect gateway bourbon for people. It really gets them into bourbon. The bottle, the story of it being the first single barrel, the fact that you can collect the toppers, and they all spell out Blantons. Just everything about it is so good to get people into whiskey and excited for whiskey. And that's what this is all about, finding a group of people that you really enjoy and having a common thread through that group, and being able to taste and share and enjoy whiskey together. So for me, Blantons is a bottle that I'll always have on my shelf, not because I drink it a lot, but because if someone comes over and has never had bourbon, it's a great gateway for me to introduce them to bourbon, and it's a pretty easy sipper. So with that, let's get into the notes. Let me smell this real quick. Now, this is a bottle I have not had. I poured this for all my Patreon members, and then I had COVID myself, so I have not tried this. On the nose, this isn't that bad. It's apple pie, like stewed apples and cinnamon. And now that I say apple pie, like maybe even some pie crust on there. A little bit of oak. There's like a thread of oak on the nose. The nose is pretty good. All right, let's look at the legs here. I like to kind of just roll this in my glass. This isn't very viscous. It's not sticking to the sides. All right, let's go in for the taste. Cheers, guys. A little astringent. You get a little bit of that oak right away. There is that apple pie taste to it. Some dusty cinnamon on there. This one is kind of drying. It doesn't taste old. It tastes more youthful than I remember past bottles of Blantons that I've had. And I've heard a couple people say this over the years, that they think the demand for Blantons is getting so big that that they're putting younger and younger whiskey in there. And I mean, based on this is the newest bottle of Blantons that I've had. Based on this, I think that's true. I think Blantons used to be like 6 to 8 years they used to put in there. This tastes more around that 4 to 5. It doesn't taste that old. Now, the one thing I get on Blantons is a sweet and sour note on the end that I didn't really ever notice until I put it in blind tastings. And you know, a Blanton's on its own is fine. It's a really easy drinker. Again, it's a really good gateway bourbon for people who aren't into bourbon. But when you start putting it into blinds, it has this sweet and sour note on the end that just kind of turns me off, and Blanton's never fares well in blinds that I do. But on its own, when I'm not A/B comparing, it's a different animal. It doesn't taste that bad. Yeah, this honestly isn't one of the best Blantons bottles that I've had, but I think it's such a great bottle to start out with on our Advent calendar because so many people shit on it, and it's really responsible, I think, in a large part for the bourbon boom, which some people might hate that also, but I love how many people are into bourbon. I love how everyone gets excited about sharing it and tasting it with their friends. It's all about relationships and having that common thread to sit down and do an Advent calendar together with a bunch of wonderful people. So don't shit on Blantons. If you see it for $120, you might crap on it a little bit, but if you ever see it for $60, $65, I think it's fine to buy a bottle, put it on your shelf, have it for people that come over. If you're just judging the whiskey on its own in a blind, I mean, I have $20 bottles, $20 bourbons that are going to be in this Advent calendar that are better than Blantons. So, but it's always fun to taste it, always fun. And I love how it's got so many people into bourbon. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's Advent tasting. Until tomorrow, cheers.